Empire had thought Earth was a forgotten relic, a dead world with no significance to the galaxy. They were wrong. The moment they murdered her, they unknowingly unleashed a force that would tear their empire apart. It started with a single brutal act, one that the Empire thought would be the end of the story. Earth's ambassador, a figure of peace and diplomacy, had been executed on the orders of the Galactic Empire, a gesture meant to demonstrate their power. In their eyes, the death of one human would be meaningless. After all, Earth had long since been ignored, its people reduced to the status of a forgotten world. The Empire believed Earth posed no threat to their vast, unchallenged dominion. But the Empire had underestimated one critical fact. The ambassador wasn't Earth's most dangerous asset. That title belonged to someone much darker, much more powerful. Someone who had not been seen in over a century. Far below the surface of Earth's most secretive military installations, deep within the catacombs of forgotten bunkers, a secret long buried was waiting. The assassination of the ambassador was the final spark that would ignite it. Across hidden chambers and long-forgotten archives, there was a name that only a select few knew: the General. Once the most feared warrior in the galaxy, the General had disappeared under mysterious circumstances years ago, her body thought to be lost to history. But Earth's leaders had kept her secret, keeping her dormant, keeping her power contained for when it would be needed. The Empire's attack had triggered the activation protocols, awakening the one force they had never counted on. A dormant cryo chamber in the deep recesses of Earth's secure military facilities hummed to life, slowly but surely. The first gasp of air filled her lungs. Her eyes opened, flooded with memories, pain, and an insatiable hunger for revenge. She had been buried, forgotten, left to the dust of time, but now she was back, and Earth's enemies would soon know her wrath. Above ground, no one had yet realized the significance of what had just transpired. The Empire's strike on Earth, though devastating, was seen as a mere formality, an act of cruelty with no real consequence. The galaxy's attention remained focused on larger conflicts, more pressing threats. The General's name was nothing more than a whispered legend. But Earth's leaders knew better. They had prepared for this moment for decades, anticipating the Empire's eventual overreach. They had kept their greatest weapon in waiting, and now that weapon was awake. The first signs of her return were subtle, an encrypted message intercepted by Earth's military high command. It read, Asterisk, the enemy will underestimate us. Prepare for what is coming. Asterisk, there was no signature, no indication of who had sent it. But those who received it knew exactly what it meant. The General had returned. Within hours, Earth's military infrastructure shifted into high gear. Secret caches of weapons were unlocked, and dormant fleets began to stir. The General's return was not just a revival of a single warrior. It was the return of a strategic genius, a master tactician who had once turned the tide of wars with nothing more than her mind and her fury. Meanwhile, the Empire continued its campaign with blind confidence. The destruction of the ambassador was only the first in a series of strikes meant to crush Earth's resolve. They targeted key cities, weapon systems, and orbital stations. Earth's resistance, they believed, would crumble under the weight of their might. What the Empire didn't know was that Earth wasn't going to fold quietly. Earth was preparing for something far greater than they could imagine. As the General's plan unfolded, her first objective was clear: disrupt the Empire's supply lines. Earth was small, its resources limited, but its ingenuity was boundless. The General's forces moved in secret, striking swiftly and without warning. A small fleet, composed of Earth's best and brightest, launched hit-and-run raids on the Empire's supply convoys, forcing them to divert precious resources to defend against an enemy they hadn't yet identified. The Empire's commanders were baffled. They had no idea who or what was attacking them. Earth, in their minds, had nothing left to offer. How could such small, insignificant forces be causing so much damage? The General knew exactly what she was doing. She wasn't just fighting the Empire's fleet. She was drawing them in, setting the stage for a far larger confrontation. Every raid, every successful strike was meant to send a message that Earth was far from finished, and the Empire's overconfidence would be its downfall. The general had returned, and the stage was set for a battle that would shake the galaxy to its core. The Empire's arrogance would be their undoing, and Earth's greatest warrior was prepared to show them just how deadly a forgotten world could truly be. Empire believed they had erased all traces of Earth's military past, but they had only awakened a sleeping giant, a general long thought dead, now returned with a vengeance. The assassination of Earth's ambassador had sent shockwaves through the galaxy, but no one anticipated the chain of events it would set off. The general, whose name was once synonymous with Earth's might, had been erased from history, her memory buried beneath the weight of time. Yet, as the Empire executed their brutal campaign against Earth, they unknowingly triggered the return of a force more powerful than they could ever have imagined. When the general's body was found, frozen in time, preserved in a secret military facility long thought abandoned, it was a discovery that defied all odds. Earth's greatest warrior had been left to die, her name left to fade into history. But the moment the Empire attacked, she awoke, her body healing, her mind sharp with the memories of a war fought long ago. Her first breath was one of fury, and as she regained consciousness, the fire of revenge was already burning inside her. The general's awakening was a carefully planned event. Earth's top officials had kept her existence a secret, hidden away from the Empire's prying eyes. A legend, once lost to time, now stood poised to bring the full weight of humanity's military power to bear against the invaders. No one outside of Earth knew what she had been capable of in her prime, but the Empire would soon learn. The first sign of her return came when Earth's military leadership received a series of encrypted messages. The tone was simple, cold, and calculated. Asterisk, the enemy is underestimating us. Prepare. Asterisk, it was the kind of message only one person could send. The general had returned, and the war was about to take a deadly turn. The Empire, still basking in the perceived ease of their early victories, didn't take the threat seriously. Earth, in their eyes, was still a backwater planet, incapable of mounting any significant resistance. They focused on their ongoing conquest, pushing forward with their invasion of key star systems, leaving Earth as an afterthought. But the general had not been idle. She knew the Empire's tactics. She understood their strategy, every weakness, every flaw in their armor. And she wasn't alone. Earth's greatest military minds, the ones who had kept the legacy of the general alive, were waiting, watching, and preparing. They had spent years studying the Empire, learning their methods, and now, under the guidance of their resurrected leader, they were ready. The general wasted no time in consolidating her forces. Earth's fleet, though small, was growing stronger with each passing day. Weapons were upgraded, ships were refitted, and soldiers trained with a single purpose in mind: vengeance. Earth's forces had no illusions. They were outnumbered and outgunned. But they had something far more important: a leader who had faced impossible odds before and come out victorious. The first strike came quickly, almost unnoticed by the Empire. A small fleet, under the command of Earth's general, launched a series of lightning-fast raids on Imperial supply lines, cutting off vital resources and forcing the Empire to commit more of its forces to defend what they had once considered secure. These skirmishes were not meant to win the war, but to send a message. Earth was no longer a passive victim. Earth had a general, and Earth would fight. Each victory, no matter how small, was a blow to the Empire's confidence. The general's reputation spread like wildfire. What had once been dismissed as a myth was now an undeniable reality. The Empire, now aware of the threat they faced, began to move more cautiously, but it was too late. The general's forces were everywhere, striking when and where the Empire least expected it. The first hints of fear began to creep into the ranks of a once invincible empire. As Earth's forces continued to disrupt the Empire's campaigns, the general issued a public message to the galaxy, a declaration of war, and a promise of retribution. You thought we were weak. You thought we had forgotten. You were wrong. Earth will not bend, and Earth will never surrender. Prepare for what is to come. The Empire's high command, still underestimating the scope of the threat, dismissed the warning. They had faced rebellions before, and they had crushed them with ease. Earth's resistance, they believed, would be no different. But the general's return was not the sign of another rebellion. It was the birth of a war. In the shadows of space, the general's forces grew. She was no longer just a symbol of Earth's military might. She was its living, breathing heart. As she watched the Empire's fleet expand, she calculated each move with precision. Her strategy was simple: make the Empire believe they were in control until the time came to strike, and then bring them to their knees in a single decisive blow. The general had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. Empire's retaliatory strike was swift, brutal, and meant to break Earth's will once and for all. But they had forgotten one critical thing. Earth's general had already anticipated their every move. The message had been clear. Earth's brief victory had rattled the Empire's foundations. Now, their response would come with the full might of their war machine. They were determined to crush the rebellion in a single, decisive blow. The general, however, wasn't fazed. She had known the Empire wouldn't take defeat lightly, and her plans were already in motion. As Earth's forces regrouped, the Empire's flagship fleet, led by one of their most feared commanders, emerged from hyperspace in full force. Their ships were massive, well-armed, and nearly invulnerable. At least, that's what the Empire had always believed. Earth's forces, smaller and less technologically advanced, had little chance of standing up to such a show of power. The first attack came in the form of an overwhelming barrage of laser fire and missile strikes. The Empire's fleet rained destruction on Earth's defensive lines, creating massive shockwaves across space. The general's command center shook as reports flooded in of ship after ship being disabled or destroyed. Yet, Earth's forces held firm. Under the general's leadership, every vessel moved with precision. Despite being outnumbered, they adopted defensive tactics that made full use of their agility and speed, utilizing their smaller ships to outmaneuver the Empire's lumbering behemoths. The general had anticipated this assault for weeks and had prepared her forces accordingly. Every move the Empire made was countered with deadly accuracy. As the battle raged on, the general's fleet launched a series of strategic feints, drawing the Empire's attention away from key systems and giving Earth's ships the chance to retaliate. In one moment of brilliance, a small group of decoy ships, rigged with false readings and designed to appear more important than they were, led the Empire's forces into a trap. The Empire, eager to finish the job, took the bait. In the blink of an eye, Earth's elite attack squadron struck. Using the chaos caused by the decoys, they targeted the weak points in the Empire's formation, attacking their communication lines, power cores, and shield generators. The Empire's fleet, caught off guard, faltered under the precision of Earth's strike. The flagship, a towering behemoth that the Empire had trusted to dominate any battlefield, found itself trapped in a deadly game of cat and mouse. Earth's ships darted in and out of the shadows, striking from angles the Empire hadn't anticipated, and retreating before the enemy could respond. The flagship's weapons couldn't keep up with the speed and fluidity of Earth's forces. With every passing minute, the Empire's confidence began to erode. Their forces, once so sure of their dominance, were now in disarray. Orders were barked frantically over comms, but the chaos that had spread through the Empire's ranks was palpable. Every new strike by Earth's forces sent a ripple of doubt through their ranks. Meanwhile, the general watched it all unfold from her command center, unmoving, her eyes scanning the battlefield. The chaos was her plan in action. She had used the Empire's arrogance against them, drawing them into a series of mistakes they couldn't recover from. She knew they would overestimate their superiority, and now it was paying off. They had underestimated not just her, but humanity as a whole. The battle reached its peak as the general's forces made a final push against the Empire's flagship. A coordinated assault of fighters and bombers struck from all sides, overwhelming the ship's defenses. In the midst of the chaos, the flagship's commanding officer, a veteran of countless campaigns, issued a final order to abandon the ship. It was too late. The flagship was lost. The general's face appeared across the Empire's communications channels, cold and unflinching. "You overplayed your hand," she said. "Your empire is already crumbling." The Empire's commanders could only watch in disbelief as their most powerful vessel was consumed in flames. A moment of victory for Earth, but the general knew it was far from over. The Empire, though shaken, was not yet broken. They would fight until their last breath. But Earth's general was ready. The defeat of their flagship was only the beginning. The battle for the galaxy had just begun in earnest. Empire's fleet thought it was unbeatable, boasting the most advanced technology and the largest army in the galaxy. But Earth's general had learned their every weakness, and now, with relentless precision, she would break them piece by piece. The battle for the galaxy had reached a critical point. The Empire, once the undisputed ruler of the stars, was beginning to show cracks. They had underestimated the sheer will and ingenuity of humanity, and it was this fatal mistake that was costing them everything. Earth's general, having broken through their defenses and crippled their supply lines, was now on the offensive. With her sharp strategic mind and knowledge of the Empire's tactics, she knew exactly where to strike and when. The Empire's greatest strength was their overwhelming numbers, but their weakness lay in their arrogance and in their belief that their superior technology made them invulnerable. The general understood that to bring down a Titan, one had to strike at its joints, at its vulnerable points, not at its head. Her first target was a massive Empire fleet stationed at the edge of the Outer Rim, thought to be safe from any threats. But it was precisely this overconfidence that made it the perfect target. Earth's fleet, now emboldened by their early successes, launched a coordinated series of guerrilla-style attacks, hit-and-run raids that disrupted the Empire's communications and crippled their reinforcements. Each raid was carefully calculated to cause maximum damage while avoiding a head-on confrontation. The Empire's admirals, brilliant strategists in their own right, scrambled to respond, but the general's tactics were too unpredictable, too efficient. Her forces moved like shadows, always one step ahead, never giving the Empire the chance to regroup. Every attack was a strike to their pride and their power, chipping away at their morale. The first significant clash came when the general's fleet faced off with a battle group twice the size of her own. The Empire, confident in its superior numbers, launched an all-out assault. It was a brutal engagement, lasers flashing across the void of space, ships colliding and disintegrating in bursts of light. The Empire's commanders had expected an easy victory. What they got was a nightmare. The general had anticipated their every move. Her fleet, despite being outnumbered, was far more agile and better coordinated. She utilized their own arrogance against them, luring their forces into a trap. As the Empire's ships advanced, Earth's fleet launched a devastating counterattack from multiple angles, forcing the Empire's fleet into disarray. Within hours, the battle group had been decimated. The general's forces lost fewer than 20 ships, while the Empire lost a quarter of its fleet. The aftermath of the battle was nothing short of humiliating for the Empire. News of their defeat spread quickly, undermining the confidence of their forces. It was clear that Earth's general was not only a formidable opponent, but that she was capable of outthinking them at every turn. But the Empire wasn't about to let this setback go unpunished. They retaliated with brutal efficiency. The Empire's high command, furious at their humiliating loss, dispatched their best commanders and the most powerful warships to crush Earth's growing rebellion once and for all. The general knew this was coming. She had predicted it, planned for it. The true test was not in victory, but in how to survive when the full might of the Empire came crashing down. The second wave of Empire forces came in a relentless surge. It wasn't just the size of their fleet that made them dangerous, but the sheer aggression of their attack. The general's forces were forced to pull back to Earth's home system, regrouping for what would be the largest engagement of the war. The general's strategy was clear: keep the Empire occupied while her allies strengthened their defenses, all the while making it impossible for the Empire to regain its footing. The battle that ensued was unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The Empire's fleet surrounded Earth's system, a wall of firepower meant to crush the rebellion in one final blow. But the general, always thinking several moves ahead, had prepared her forces for just such a confrontation. With a brilliant combination of feints, decoys, and counterattacks, Earth's fleet managed to hold their ground, tying up the Empire's forces and forcing them to fight on multiple fronts. Every ship in Earth's fleet was a part of a greater plan, each engaged in a carefully choreographed dance of destruction. The Empire's forces tried to cut through Earth's defenses with overwhelming force, but they found themselves bogged down in a series of brutal engagements, unable to break through. The general's tactics, a blend of ancient warfare and modern strategy, kept the Empire guessing, unable to predict where the next strike would come from. After days of fighting, the Empire's commanders were exhausted, their ships battered and their morale broken. For all their might, they were losing to a force they had once deemed insignificant. The final blow came when the general's forces infiltrated the Empire's flagship. A team of elite soldiers, led by the general herself, boarded the ship under the cover of a coordinated assault. They fought their way to the bridge, capturing the Empire's command center and forcing the fleet's leaders to surrender. The flagship, once the symbol of Empire's invincibility, was now in the hands of Earth's warriors. The general stood in the wreckage of the Empire's command center, her hands stained with the blood of those who had once believed they could control the galaxy. The Empire had lost. It was only a matter of time before their rule was no more. As the last of the Empire's ships retreated, battered and broken, the general's voice echoed through the communication channels. The tide has turned. You can no longer outrun what's coming. The Empire's greatest weapon was deployed, a massive, planet-destroying superweapon that could erase entire worlds from existence. But the general had a different plan, one that would turn the tide of the war in an instant. The Empire's high command had believed this was their moment, one final, devastating strike to wipe out Earth's resistance once and for all. Their superweapon, Eclipse, was the crown jewel of their military might. A colossal ship capable of firing a beam so powerful it could obliterate any planet in seconds. Eclipse was the pinnacle of their technological supremacy. There was no way humanity could survive this. But they had underestimated her. Earth's general had seen this coming. For weeks, she had tracked every movement, every maneuver, every supply chain of the Empire's forces. She knew the superweapon was the last card the Empire had to play, and she knew exactly how to turn it against them. As the superweapon moved into position, the general's forces launched a calculated strike. It began with a distraction, a series of decoy ships designed to draw the attention of Eclipse's sensors. They weren't intended to last long, just enough to give the general's fleet time to move into position. The Empire's commanders fell for it without hesitation, focusing all their resources on the decoys as Earth's true fleet slipped through the gaps. On board Eclipse, the Empire's command crew were eager for a victory, even as they underestimated the human ingenuity that had driven their enemies to this point. Target Earth's capital, the commander ordered. This will be the end. But the general was already 2 steps ahead. As the weapon powered up, she hacked into the Empire's communications network, sending false readings, scrambling their targeting systems. The crew of Eclipse panicked, but it was too late. From deep within Earth's fleet, a single ship, disguised as a part of the decoy fleet, launched a covert assault on Eclipse's control systems. A missile packed with EMP charges shot through the Empire's outer defenses, hitting the main reactor of the superweapon. The ship's core was destabilized, sending waves of energy through the Empire's network. For the first time in the war, the Empire's high-tech weapons were rendered useless. Inside Eclipse, the shockwave caused chaos. The systems failed one by one, and the mighty superweapon began to fall apart under its own weight. The Empire's command structure crumbled as the general's forces swarmed the ship like a relentless tide, tearing through the enemy lines with surgical precision. Shut it down. Shut it down now. The commander's voice echoed in panic, but it was too late. The superweapon was no longer under control. The general watched from a distance as the ship spiraled toward oblivion. Her plan had worked, but it wasn't enough to end the war. Yet, the destruction of Eclipse was only the beginning. She knew the Empire wouldn't back down so easily. They would fight harder, become more desperate, but they had no idea who they were truly up against. On Earth, People celebrated the initial victory, but the general remained focused. She knew the Empire would retaliate. They always did. But now, their most formidable weapon was gone. The balance had shifted. The commander of Eclipse, his hands shaking, attempted to send a final distress signal, but it was intercepted. The general's fleet had already seized control of the communications channels. A calm, steady voice echoed through the transmission. "You had your chance," she said, her voice cold as ice. "You failed." The signal cut off, and the flagship of the Empire, once an instrument of absolute power, drifted helplessly toward the abyss. But there was no time for celebration. The general had no illusions. This victory was only a small step toward their ultimate goal. The Empire's core would not fall easily. Its leaders would fight to the bitter end. The real war, the one that would determine the fate of the galaxy, had only just begun. As Earth's forces regrouped and prepared for the next phase, the general's mind raced. She had already calculated the next move, the next strike that would send shockwaves through the remaining Empire strongholds. The Empire had revealed its hand. And now, she was ready to play hers. The galaxy would soon understand one undeniable truth. Earth was not just fighting for survival. It was fighting for the future. The final warship of the Galactic Empire, battered and burning, drifted into the void of space. The silence that followed was deafening. On board, the last of the Empire's leaders knew their time had run out. Earth's general had proven herself not just a legend, but a reckoning. The galaxy had watched as the Empire's forces crumbled under the ruthless strategies of one woman, one general who had awakened from death to bring an empire to its knees. Now, standing on the precipice of total victory, Earth's most feared warrior faced the final confrontation. But she wasn't just fighting for Earth. She was fighting for everything the Empire had destroyed. The star systems trembled, waiting to see who would stand when the dust settled. The general had already orchestrated the collapse of the Empire's might. Now, it was time for her to deliver the final blow. Aboard the shattered bridge of the Empire's flagship, the last high-ranking officers huddled, their faces pale, their eyes wide with the kind of fear that only the truly defeated know. The general's face appeared on their screen, cold, merciless, and unwavering. Behind her, Earth's flag was unfurled, rippling in the vacuum of space. "Do you understand what's happening?" she asked, her voice calm, almost too calm. "The war you started, it ends today." The Empire's supreme commander, the man who had believed himself invincible, stood frozen in place. His hands trembled as he activated the emergency comms, his voice barely a whisper. "You can't." But the general interrupted, her eyes burning with a fury that had already consumed entire fleets. "You had your chance. You killed my people. You destroyed my home. You thought you could break us. Now, the reckoning is here." The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as the general's signal cut through their communication network. It was a simple message: surrender or die. Outside, Earth's fleet, powered by years of relentless preparation, encircled the Empire's flagship. It was over. No reinforcements were coming. The Empire had stretched itself too thin, too arrogant in its belief that their superior technology and vast numbers would be enough to quell a world they had underestimated. The general's forces had already begun their final assault. One by one, the remaining fleet's shields flickered out, and then came the explosions, violent, unrelenting, and precise. Each strike was a calculated death sentence, a cold and methodical execution of a foe that had once believed it was untouchable. The commander's voice cracked as he finally spoke. "You can't destroy us all. We will fight until the end." She tilted her head, a cold smile playing across her lips. "You don't understand. I am the end." The final salvo hit. The flagship's central reactor exploded, sending a shockwave through the remnants of the Empire's fleet. There would be no escape, no last-minute miracle to save them. The general's fury had already broken their spirits, and now she was closing the chapter of their downfall with her own hands. As the flagship burned, the general's face appeared on every screen in the galaxy, her final message delivered with chilling clarity. The Empire is no more. The galaxy belongs to humanity now. And with that, the galaxy would never forget the name of the one who brought the Empire to its knees. She was Earth's most ruthless general, a force that, once awakened, could not be stopped. Humanity had risen. The galaxy had been warned.